Hey there. I know that if you're looking closely, and I lift up just a little, you can see that I'm wearing my Universe of Latina Superheroes, aka A La Brava. Why am I wearing this? Well, because I got off this amazing call with Kayden Phoenix, who, if you saw my Instagram video and I was wearing this shirt at the time, I, in potentially a bit of befuddlement because of all the pain medication I've been on for my knee replacement surgery, referred to her as Jaden Phoenix, which is wrong. It's Kayden Phoenix. She is the founder of Phoenix Comics. She has an amazing mission, and I am lucky enough to share this great conversation that we had with you. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it, but allow me to get out of the way so that you can hear my great chat with Kayden Phoenix.
Let me just start by saying, Caden, again, now that we're actually recording, thanks for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for all your support already as well.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Now, there was a request suggested to me that I went ahead and followed. And I love to point out that I don't usually wear V-neck, but I look good in this one. And I think other people will too. So
Yeah. Thank you. You do look very good. And whoever suggested that is very, very cool and smart. And so I appreciate that too.
they are very cool and smart. And that's the best thing. You never know who you're going to run into. And I got a chance to, be introduced to Phoenix Comics through DC Comics News and
Yeah.
the offering of, checking out Jalisco and then hearing from one of my compatriots about his experience reading Santa. And then he actually messaged me not long before we started talking saying, "Have you read Lakita?" And I was like, "No, actually, I haven't." And he goes, "Check it out when you get a chance. It's working with some really great themes, and I think you should give it a read since you like Jalisco." And then I spoke with you, and then I was like, "Okay, I have to now." And I do agree. I love the themes. I'd love to talk about them, but to sort of
Yeah.
frame our conversation, I want to start with something that while we were setting up this chat, you said to me, and it felt like a really great way to start this conversation. And it was, you said, "I was taught when I was small to jump in the deep side of the pool." And I would love to hear the story behind that and then move us into everything else everyone's going to enjoy hearing. So, where did that come from? Who did that come from? What's your earliest memory of it?
Literally, my mom threw me in the pool when I was really small. Like, it's not a lie. I know it's a quote, but it's literally true. I remember I used to live in San Diego when I was really, really small. And like, we obviously we had like, like, I want to say community center or whatnot, but like I used to swim like actual like freestyle, not just like paddle around, but like actually swim when I was like 4. And then when I started swimming, competitively swimming when I was 6, like a swim team, and going to swim meets, and I can do 4 strokes and relay races, all that jazz. But like my mom is the reason why I'm so like gung ho pretty much on everything, because like I started playing piano when I was 4, because she, not to say she made me, but like my grandma taught me like a little, little like chopsticks or whatever, like little duets. My grandpa and I used to always do duets. And then mom's like, great, here's a piano, or we had a baby grand. So it's just like, here, go to lessons, here, go to recitals, and then 5 soccer, 6 was actually swim team competitively, and I just kept going. So I always had sports and activities at the same time, and of course my grades. And so like it's that, like you get thrown into the pool, you have to, or you have to swim. You got no chance, you got no choice. And that's kind of the way I approach with everything. Like my comics, like I self-publish, I do everything. I teach myself if I don't know, which I don't know a lot, but I do teach myself and I research. And you get the good team around you, like all my artists, like they get all the praise. The colorist is amazing, my pencilers are amazing. Like that's why I look so good. I'm the writer, so I get the third, the tertiary compliment. But like first, it looks pretty. I like the colors, which are my artist. And so like it's that you do your research, but you also get a great team that also supports you and is under, the same impression. Like we have the same meaning. We want the same, equality.
I agree. And while it might get a tertiary, I do believe that there, because I come from the writing side of things, I'm often describing when I'm writing a review or talking about something. It's the story that's magnified by so many other things. So that was what really captured me about both Jalisco and then Santa and then with Loquita. So I was immediately drawn on by that because you got to hold me. Like it's like movies. I love beautiful, pretty stuff, but if there isn't a reason for me to keep watching it, I sort of go, but why? And that can be the big that can be the big challenge. So I love the stories you've been crafting, and I'm curious
Thank
how
you.
then to sort of introduce, where is it that Phoenix Comics came from? Was there like a starting point where you could look back and just sort of say, well, I started drawing or reading comics, or I knew I wanted to do something with expression, and this seemed like a great medium. I'm curious how that started, if you can recall, and if not,
Yeah.
we'll work it all out.
A few years ago, so I come from writing and directing in the film industry, very independent, but writing and directing. And so I, as a writer, in my head, like a screenwriter, I was like, okay, what can if I have any movie up on the big screen, what would it be? And my first thought was Latina Superhero, right? And for obvious reasons, didn't explain that part. And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna write a Latina superhero, script, a feature-length script, so I can pitch it and hopefully it gets made. And so that was my first one. I was like, okay, I can do that. And then second, I was like, okay, if I make more than one, like 5 superheroes, I increase my chances that one of them will get on the big screen. And so like that was my next one. I was like, okay, if they're 5, they're in the same universe. If they're in the same universe, they're a team. And it just kind of progressed like that. And so I wrote out my feature length script. So I thought of all 5. It's the order. Jalisco was my first one. And so I wrote out the script. I shot a sizzle, which is like a short film, so I can use to pitch. And then everyone that I showed the film to, they asked me if there was a comic book. Like every single person, which is a nice compliment. And every single person I said no, right? Because there is no comic, and I don't come from comics. I don't read comics at that time, at least. And so I come from film and TV, mainly film. And so that was my intro. It's like, okay, so many people are asking me, right? That's the truth by consensus. Like that means I should have a comic book, because so many people expect a comic because her powers, but her skill with the blades and the dress. And so that's how it started. So I was like, okay, great, I'll make a comic. So research comic versus graphic novel, and you go through the numbers, like also business besides the creative, but the business side of it, because volume wise, I can't do single issues because I don't, I'm not Marvel DC. I can't get every single person across the US in the comic book stores. But for graphic novel makes sense because I can translate my feature length script, which is like 90 pages to 60 pages. And so I did that, and so graphic novel, and I'm like, okay, what do I need? Same thing, research. It's just research. Okay, penciler, inker, colors, letters. Editor, I'm the editor. And so like you just go through all the list of what you have to do, and then you go out and do it. And that's the same thing. Let's get thrown into the pool, because I did Jalisco, and like honestly, it's every one of us. I'll show you all my artists, which are amazing. But you see, like there's like 7 or 8 of us, and every single one of us, that was our first graphic novel, except for my inker. But like everyone else, that's our first. And so I was like, great, we did good. Do the next one. Santa looks better, more crisp. Now, I'm not saying it's a better story or better anything, but it looks more crisp because that's my second book, right? And like it just keeps getting better and better. Like when you see Druka is the 4th one, the next one being made. So 1, 2, 3, 4. She's the one that did this one. Now you can see the glare. So
There you go.
so you'll see a crisper art style, because this is Amanda that did these 2. Eva Cabrera did these 2, and this is a new penciler. And so like you're gonna see it when you see it. She looked at the lines, like same thing. We're all growing, which is part of it. So you'll see how her evolution of drawing as well, because Amanda comes from animation. I come from film industry, from live action, right? We all come from different places. Eva's the only one that comes from comics, like she knows comics, of course. But all my colorists come from animation as well, and books. They do a lot of like characters, like books, like children's books. So we all come from somewhere, but same thing. We all have the same meaning and reason why we're doing it, and so we collaborate very well.
Wow, that's quite a beginning. I
Yeah.
love the development of the sizzle. That's not something I'm familiar with. I've got my own category of cool, which is on this side of uncool, and I'm fine with that. But as soon as you said it, I was like, that's a nice little ring to it. And I love the idea of presenting that, because it reminds me when I was at a writing program, we were lucky enough to have the writer. I always forget his name, and then I go back and I remember it. But he wrote LA Confidential, and he came and he was talking to us about the fact that so often with the movie projects, they would go back to the source material. Oftentimes it was a script, but if there was a book before a script, they would look at that as well, because he said that was the source, and they wanted to have like a base to work off of. So I'm intrigued that when you were presenting this sizzle, that they're going, oh, okay, well, is there a source that goes with it? Like, what's it based off of? And I'm intrigued because what he told me at that time, I mean, this entire group, while he was talking about it, it was an interesting thing for me to keep in mind, because he was encouraging, like, look, people are going to tell you to pursue these different avenues, but get something down on paper. Whatever you end up doing, put it down on paper and then build off of that. And that can be a reference point. You sort of skipped that step to a degree. I mean, you had a script that was created for visual, and the medium, of course, being like TV, film. But then when you looked at it in a different approach, you were able to translate it into comics. So I got a kick out of that idea, that everyone's going, where's the comic to go with it? And you're like, who said there had to be? Really? Okay, well, now that you keep asking me about it, I think it's a pretty neat idea. And then the evolution from, well, why one character when I could do five? And then also, you're playing the odds here, which I totally get. During many parts of a freelance career, it's really common to like, how many irons can I get out in the fire, and which one's gonna, kick up and get going? And through that process, you create this universe. Do you remember how far back this started, that you were like in TV and film and you were working on this idea and then it evolving into the comics? Has it been very rapid, like just, a very short period of time in your estimation, or how would you define it as far as how it feels?
Well, for Jalisco, everyone got contracted, meaning all my artists got contracted, but they're all on 6-month contracts, January of 2019. So roughly a couple of, I mean, for sure 2 years. I don't count last year as anything, but 2 years for sure. And so I started a little bit right before that, so late 2018 is when I shot everything, and I, did my sizzle and my short.
And did you see yourself, I mean, with that sizzle? Because I remember one of the things that caught my attention the most. Sorry, sometimes I know what I'm saying, but I have to look at this invisible screen just off to my left or right, and then the words appear, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you're talking about. Um, when I'm thinking about that, I'm reminded of the fact that with Jalisco, what caught me immediately was that there was a message very early. Was that part of the sizzle approach too? Was there a message involved in that theatric film version? That
Well, sizzle, so the purpose of sizzle, it's a 3-minute short film, so it has a beginning, middle, end, but the purpose of a sizzle for this particular one is to show her powers. So
okay?
here's, if I say folklorico and you don't know what that means, that's okay, because you'll see her moving, you'll see her dancing, doing the olas, like, which is the waves or her dress, and you'll see her go like this, and the blades will come out, right? And so you'll understand, oh, that is her power, and so it's a visual, and like the story, this 3-minute short film sizzle, it's not what you see in the book. It has nothing to do with the book, because that's the origin story, is the book. This is, okay, here's a slice of life, a little clip of what she can do. Let me understand her personality. Let me understand, what she does, what she goes after. Yeah, and obviously her skill.
And then, so when did the message get folded in? Because you're addressing a really powerful topic. I was stunned when I was looking at it and doing research. It was like, okay, yeah, if you do look it up, this is a horrifying story that so many women are going missing. And why have I not heard about it more? Why is it that I'm hearing about it through a comic book? Which is amazing that I am. But I was curious, when was there an immediate intention for that, when you started writing this story? And more about how that was part of what I feel is a really powerful component to your comics.
So when I first started, my first 5, I gave them their names and their powers, if you will, because 2 of them don't have powers, 2 of them have skills. But I gave them the names and the powers and their heritages. So, Jalisco is from Mexico, so she's my Mexicana, right? Ruca is my Chicana, so she's from East LA, etc. So I went through, within reason, I covered as many heritages as I can within the 5. So that was part 1. But then when I got to each script, writing out the feature length script of each one, I did think, okay, what are they saving, right? Like, who are they going after? But really, it's what are they saving? And then you make the villain based on, who they're going against. And so my Jalisco is very much based on, not, I want to say my family, but everything that's about me that I was raised with. So my mom danced folklorico, which is why Jalisco dances folklorico, right? My mom, my superhero. That's why Jalisco's a superhero. That one was my easiest one. So I was just like, okay, she has blades. My mom had a black dress, which is why Jalisco has a black dress. There's very things that I know. My grandma's name is Adela, which is the mentor, the old lady. It's Adela, right? Because I know this, my aunt is Rocky. It's my favorite aunt, which is the Aunt Raquel, or the other Raquel. So we used to call her Rocky. So that's the cute friend that she'd be friends, because obviously that's my aunt. And so she's my friend too. And so those are little things that I put in. My grandma's from Jalisco. My other grandma's from Chihuahua. So that is why she's named Jalisco. And Chihuahua is known for the women of Juarez, which is the femicide, right? Because right on that border town of El Paso and Juarez on the Mexican side, that's where they find a lot of the bodies. And so I knew about that since I was small, because my grandma still has family out there in Chihuahua in Texas. And so same thing. It's one of those like, okay, what this one's, I tell you, my family won within, nothing happened per se, but my family won. And so like, okay, that is important to me. I can write about it. Right. And so that's what I thought. And then like, okay, so who's in charge of the femicide? The villain. All right. So let me create the villain off that. But I always started with pretty much what do you want to say, right? Like what's important? Because they're all going to be superheroes, and all superhero stories, origin stories all have the same beats no matter what, which is fine. They do always follow beats. But it's okay. What is the important part about it? They're grounded. And if you can see, they're all really grounded. None of them fly. None of them are aliens. Like they're grounded because we're real people, and we don't get saved. Females in general, not just Latinas, but just females, because femicide is females, right? The murder of females. And so it's just that, like, what do I want to say? Like you unfortunately haven't heard about it, but I'm glad you have now. Same thing. I grew up with it because I have family from Juarez, so it's a different story. Obviously I'm more protection because they had to tell me, but it's stuff like that. Like, so I'm glad you heard about it, and you read about it, and like, here's a digestible story as well, because it's not necessarily preach, because you can't really preach at somebody, but if it's part of a story, you'll understand. And so that was my approach. I wrote it in with when I was writing out each script.
It's a powerful story, and I was glad that it was brought to my attention, and so many things you were just saying to me, I loved, because for starters, your mom's your superhero.
Yeah.
I love that. My father was mine. Actually, both my parents were. My mom was my superhero when it came to like being a teacher and teaching me reading and writing. Like, for me, the moment she taught me to read, she gave me that key. I could, always escape. And my dad was just that guy who just, he did everything. Maybe he sucked at it, but he just did stuff. And I was like, how do you just do stuff? Like, how do you just, work 12-hour days or something ridiculous like that? That was what it, identified for me as them being superheroes. When you talked about your mom being a superhero, I was curious what qualities of those you looked up to, or that you said, these are the things that when I think of my mom as a superhero, they come to mind, or I remember.
Pretty much my mom can do anything. Like she's, and like it's just why I have that mentality. Like I can make a comic, I can do this, right? So I have that mentality because of my mom, right? Because my mom's, any problem you have, or for me, I always went to my mom, and she's like, okay, let's solve it. Right. And so like my mom can literally do anything. She's also very craftsy and like very fine arts. Like and she can draw. I cannot draw. She can sing. I can't sing. She can play piano and guitar. I can only play piano. Right. Like she can do literally everything. And so I saw that growing up, and like that's the whole thing. Like if I can do it, you can do it kind of mentality, but it's absolutely true. Like that's why she's my superhero. Because it wasn't like, oh, you're a girl, or oh, we can't afford that. It was like, sure, we can do it, and we'll do our version of it.
And then you also mentioned folklorico, which I'm always worried when I'm trying to speak anything that's not my native language that I just butcher it completely. So if I did, thanks for your understanding. But I was curious if you also pursued any dancing, if it was a tradition that was continued by your mom, or if that was sort of like one of those things where she was like, okay, we're doing piano, we're doing swimming, but we just don't have enough hours in the day between school, eating, and sleeping, or if that was ever an option or a consideration.
It was. She made me practice with her once or twice. I don't dance. I'm more athletic. I'm much more athletic and academic. Dance for me was more on the activity side, like back when I was doing gymnastics or karate, right? I told you, like I did sports activities.
Right.
But at that time I was, or high school, I very much focused on school. Like I was in AP classes, and all that extra honors and all that extra jazz besides being in sports, beginning and at the end of school, and then on the weekends. And so no, it wasn't anything that I ever had to do, but I always went to her shows, and like she used to perform at LA County Fair every year with her troupe, and so like that was a fun because I'd have to watch her performance, and then my brother and I were let free to do anything we wanted at LA County Fair, and then obviously we have the other shows that I had to go to as well. But no, I never ever danced, nor did I want to, honestly. I'm not really a dancer anyway.
That's okay. I was curious too, because I know that in my wife's family, a lot of her relatives, including her mom and herself, they're Filipino. And they have a strong connection also to the other island communities. And a shared one is a shared love of Hawaiian dancing. And they enjoy doing hula, and they were part of a halal, and they would practice, and it was like a really great community thing. Some people did it, some people did it for short periods of time, some people went once, some people were lifers. So I was always intrigued,
Um,
how that fits in with others, if it's part of your community or part of your family, if it's something, because some of the boys, they do it, other ones are like, no, no, and some of the girls, they want to do it, and others, they're just like, yeah, I have 3 left feet and this simply isn't going to work. So I was curious also, just because so much of your family that you were drawing from when you were talking about writing Jalisco and so many of those great elements, I just wondered then too, I was like, well, all right, let's see if Folklorico was part of that. um, Continuing on, I'm intrigued by, how you then took this idea from around 2018, and you've got the film part. Were you collaborating with anyone else at that time, or was this all a solo project when you were
I
putting
did a
together that?
Kickstarter for it, for Jalisco the Sizzle, the short film slash sizzle, it's the same. I
Mm,
did a Kickstarter and I got $12,000, and so I got lots of which is really nice. The community, same. Everyone bands around you. They well understand the purpose, and I got like free gear. I got free camera. I got free CGI. I got like a lot, and then free food. Crafty and late lunch or catering. And so like saying
wow.
it was really on top of the 12K. And so I'll send you the short film later if you want to see it, but it's not for public as of right now. But yeah, we shot at the San Gabriel Mission, right? Because it's supposed to be based in Mexico. So we went to San Gabriel Mission. Obviously I had a dress made as well, and all the little things. And so, lots of background and all. It takes place at a wedding. It's a child bride wedding. And so she goes to save the child from the wedding. And so that's also something that's very Mexico, unfortunately, as well. So same thing, it's a slice of life. It has nothing to do with the origin story, but that same thing, it goes within her world of people that she would save.
This could potentially be a story that, in a future issue could appear,
Yeah.
or it's an element that could be part of. I could see it as a great opening for the next graphic novel. Like she's like, hey, I'm combating all kinds of problems out here. You want to know what they are? Like, keep reading. This is how it gets interesting. Um,
Yeah.
so then you've put together this amazing, congratulations, by the way, on
Thank
the
you.
Kickstarter, and all the success, and the sort of like bounty that came on top of it. It's really impressive how generous the community is when they see something that they're like, this is something we want to support. Now,
Yeah.
you created that, so kudos and
Mhm.
complete recognition. And then from there, how did you go about when you started looking at the idea of, okay, I want to approach this, I've done my research,
Yeah.
single issues aren't working for me, I'm going to do a graphic novel, I'm going to need a team. I can do the writing, but you said you don't draw. And how then did you go about finding? Was it like, I always love the stories about like the rock band Kiss putting an ad in the paper for a drummer, someone willing to do anything, or how these other stories about how people meet. Sometimes it's just, for example, I was talking with a couple of guys who are doing a comic, and one of them said, yeah, this guy comes in, I guess, for an interview, and he's wearing to the nines, like everything about him is sparkling, and the rest of us are like more casual. And he's like, so at some point I started talking to the guy, and then after we realized we both love comics, I pitched him my idea, and that was how our friendship was formed. It was like one of those weird. I was curious about the story behind yours, because you mentioned that, except for one person, I believe your inker, no one else had done comics before. How did you find this amazing team and put
Yeah.
together a group that's working on all of these beautiful projects?
Well, it wasn't a prerequisite to do comics, that's for sure. I was looking for artists that understood storyboarding, that understands storyboarding is for the most part, because if you come from animation, you have moving stills, right? These are stills that are literally not moving, of course. And so that part didn't matter to me in regards to the resume. I knew for sure I wanted females. They happen to be all Latinas, which is even better for me. But it's just inclusion. I'm a big advocate of equality. And so it's like, name a female comic book artist, Jen Bartel. Name a Latina comic book artist. I bet you cannot. And like that's the problem. And so I can't, well, I can name mine, but I can't otherwise. And that's the problem.
Right.
And so, I went online. I'm a big social media person, right? Because I come from marketing. Social media is marketing. And so you look up hashtags, same thing. I researched, like there's hashtag women who draw. Right. And so it's all the people, all females that draw within the world, which is really amazing. And so I saw so many cool art styles, and I started saving for myself my tone board. I was like, I like this style, and a lot of them lent more towards anime. And then, so then like the Nickelodeon and like Cartoon Network, that's not particularly me because that's much more guy skewed. But the bigger eyes and Disney and anime, absolutely. You're right, which is why they look like this. They look Disney and anime put together. And so I made my tone board and I started saving people that I liked, right? Like, and I started writing them. I cold wrote them. And I look anywhere, like obviously Instagram was my main one because that's all visuals, based on women who draw and women who illustrate, I think are the two ones. And then I found one girl and she was here and she's Latina, and I wrote her and I said, hey, do you want to meet? I'm doing a comic book, a superhero comic book, Latina. And she said, yeah. So we met, I took her out for lunch and then I was like, hey, do you want to be a penciler? And I told her my whole idea, right? My 5 books, or 6 books rather, 5 origin stories and the team book. And I was like, do you want to be a penciler? And she's like, no. And I was like, okay. Like, it was really funny because like she could have told me no via email. But anyway, I took her out to lunch and she told me no. And I was like, okay. And then she's just like, but I'll be your colorist, which is so nice. And I was like, great. I'm glad she knows what she wants because I did not know that. That wasn't going to be my follow-up question. And she's like, and I'll give you a tweet because I have X amount of followers on my Twitter and they're all artists. And I was like, great. And so she put Latina creator looking for Latina artist for Latino superhero, drop your ports. And I got 60 people. And so I went through so she gave me the link, of course. And so I went through every single one of those people and I looked at whatever they put, whatever their port was, whether it was DeviantArt or Tumblr or their own portfolio, like website, and Instagrams as well. I always go to their Instagrams, and so then I went through there and I found every single person afterwards from there.
Wow. That's a really great network story. I mean,
Yeah.
I love the research involved, but it sounds like, making the right connections turned out to really pay off.
Yeah.
So from that, you were able to build all the teams for each one of the books. Is there a bit of carryover? Are there a few who are working on one book or is everyone working on each book? Is there a little bit of differences in the team from book to book?
So there are differences just because I have more than one book going, so I need more artists just because of time wise. So like I was saying, like Santa and Loquita are the same artist because Eva Cabrera is absolutely amazing and she's great, right? She's on it. Like she does the Archie comics, she does Kim and Kim. Obviously she did mine. She did me the favor and did mine. And so so like she carried over, and then same thing, like both my pencilers carried over. So Eva Cabrera penciled Loquita y Santa, and then Amanda Jelena Gonzalez did Jalisco, and she's on Druka right now based on their schedules. And then because I have Bandita going, I needed another penciler, right? Because I couldn't use them again. And so I got a new penciler, and from after my first Jalisco, my first set, everybody referred me to extra ones. They just said, oh, here's my friends, and so they gave me different people's Instagrams. And so I reached out cold and I was like, hi, you were referred by da da da. And that's, the same pitch over and over. And they say yes or no, whether penciler, ink, or colorist. My letterist is the same for all of them. So that's my friend here, and that's Sandra Romero. And then for Jalisco, one of my colors, so I have 3 colorists, those are all friends. She also colored Santa. And so same thing. And then they just refer you, like they're like, oh, I'm too busy because I'm doing this, which is fair and good. I'm glad they're busy. Then I go and find a new one. And so I have 4 books going right now. I have Druka, I'm looking at my books here. I have Druka, A La Brava, and Mexica. So that's my other one. That's my princess series. So I have 3 books going right now. Druga Bandita. I have 4 books I like. Druga Bandita, A La Brava, and then I have my princess series, and that's Mexica. So I have 4 sets of artists, all working on different ones right now.
Wow. So in total, how many artists would you say you've worked with through the process up to this point?
Well, right now we're on 7 books, and so we'll say 7 at 5, so 35 at least.
That's quite a community to draw from in the future. Yeah. I mean, I love the idea that not only is everyone else busy on other projects, but that if they are too busy, they have a great recommendation that you can follow up with. And you have that sort of option of going, hey, I've got this pool now that I can reach out to, because there's a chance someone can help me here, but can't help me later. Or someone's got a nice break in their other schedule. They've got a chance to work on with me for a certain period of time. And I have a feeling your pool is only going to continue growing, because from what I've seen from your social media, you've been out there making connections. You even recently appeared, I saw on not only the local news station around here, which is the ABC 7, but also I saw you were having a conversation with an elected official as well. Can you tell me how, that conversation got started, or how it was that you guys were able to connect and then sit down and meet
Yeah.
together?
Because of Eyewitness News 7, because I was on one of their segments, the next day somebody found me, and they wrote me, I think via email, but they found me. I guess they went through my website, they found my email, and she wrote me. And she's a representative of Jimmy Gomez. And so he's our House representatives on the federal level for California. And so I got to meet him, and I got, let me look, it's called Certificate of Recognition. And that was really nice. That's really, it's an honor. So I'm just lucky. And so it was really fun and cool. But I got that. And then I had Telemundo, I believe in September, because I have Jalisco in Spanish coming out. So I pushed her because they found me as well because of Eyewitness News. And then earlier this year, I had Spectrum News. And then I went to Fresno and I got Univision, which is the other major Spanish channel.
Right.
So, yeah.
I did actually see some postings mentioning the Spanish Loquita, right? And
Jalisco.
Jalisco, sorry, thank you. And because I'm trying to picture what it was that I saw, and I felt like I saw a pretty interesting like setup. So tell me more about what's going on with that, how much you can tell,
Yeah.
and what you're going to be sharing. You know, later. It sounds like in September.
Yeah, so Jalisco in Spanish is the exact same story as Jalisco. Like it's the same thing. The only thing that's getting translated are the words. So
Okay.
so the panels, I mean, the artist doesn't change. The panels, nothing changes except for the lettering itself. Because I should have a Spanish one. I got asked that since Jalisco came out last year, or late last year, like 2 years ago, excuse me, 2019. Everybody asked me for a Spanish one because because it takes place in Mexico, which should be in Spanish regardless. And it's femicide, same which is very, very Mujeres de Juarez. It is a very Latin America, including Mexico thing. We have it here as well. We have it in Canada with the Native Americans because there is a horrible femicide with them as well. But same thing, femicide, Juarez, women of Juarez is known is Mexico. And so so it's important to have it. And same thing, a lot of people have asked. And so that's why I'm doing the Spanish version. Only for Jalisco as of right now.
Okay. And then you mentioned that will tie into something that you're doing with Telemundo in September.
Oh yeah, they were going to interview me because they were going to interview me a couple of weeks ago. But I pushed them, so when I have the book, I can say, "Oh, I have a book in Spanish as well," since I'm in a Spanish news channel. Yeah, and then
Right.
I'll be kickstarting for it. I believe in a few weeks. Right now, we're getting set up, but we're going to do a Kickstarter crowdfunding for it to pay for the printing cost.
Please make sure I have links for that so I can include them in the liner notes, and anybody who wants to be a part of supporting that can, get themselves all the info they need and figure out what their pledge level is and all that. It sounds like a great project. Do you feel like if things go well and you can time it with everything that you also have moving forward, because it's a challenge. You're with Jalisco, it's like you're going back to something while you have these other projects that are moving forward to do the Spanish version. Do you think there will be an opportunity to do Spanish versions for the other books you've already written, or is it going to be difficult going in two directions at the same time?
I can. My letterist is amazing. So Sandra's the one she's the letterist for all of them. And so she's supposed to be on Ruca, but I slid Jalisco in right now. And so she's working on Jalisco for the next few weeks. And then she goes back to the Ruca, and then she goes Bandita, and then A La Brava, and so she's working overtime. She's great. Me, honestly, that's not like I'm going backwards because I'm not doing anything. I just have to make sure, check the pages, because I'm the editor, so I'm proofreader. But other than that, I'm not working necessarily harder. She is. Obviously, she's getting paid, but she is definitely working double time.
Okay,
If I
yeah.
got another letterist, maybe, or translator / letterist, but I'm not there right now. Right now, I'm like, okay, because same thing. When Druga, Bandita, La Brava, Mexica, they're all gonna hit me, and that's just money out, out of the account back to them. So I gotta time it.
I would imagine. No, that's where I thought the juggling would have to happen in some way, either financially, creatively, or something else. But I think it's great that you will have Jalisco Spanish version available soon. And I think your timing for Telemundo is brilliant. It's like, yeah, it'd be great if we could talk now, but all I'm going to tell you is something's coming. Why don't we actually get together when I have the thing to show you? And this way, people can go out and find it instead of waiting and maybe forgetting in the meantime. Because people have great attention spans and then they don't. It just happens. As you said, this past year, most of us are ready to go what? That was like a big long nap, maybe a lazy day, and just compress it there. Um, Tell me more. The thing that I love is that you're by starting out with 5 heroes, you're initially creating a world just from that concept because of so many different elements you're going to be showing. Are these worlds connected in any way? Is there a chance that characters' storylines will overlap for particular reasons because of where they are, what they're fighting for, and who they might end up working with?
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity for anything like that? Do you see this branching out into becoming something like your own Marvel or DC, where it's like, so I've got universe, and then sometimes we have crossovers, and this could get as big as a web as I can, stretch
They
out there.
they absolutely can. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not there right now, but for A La Brava, like, or the whole series of A La Brava, like, because you read Loquita, you know that she grew up with Jalisco as a hero. So when you see A La Brava, like the sixth one, the sixth book, when she sees her, she's like starstruck because that is her hero, her childhood hero, right? And so like you have to see, like, that's why she has the doll and she has their dress, her bed cover is Jalisco, right? Like, and so it's just in there in case you see it. If you don't, it does not matter, because eventually you'll catch up to it on the sixth book. So there's little thing, if you, Ruka is not out yet, but Ruka gets given a Jalisco doll, and same thing, and she doesn't know who it is because she doesn't, she's older, she doesn't know about Jalisco. So there's little things. These people have met prior, so they already know each other on the sixth book. Now, in regards to when they're crossing over, they absolutely can, and I think that's really fun. The Princesses series are a little bit more, they're more fantastical. These are very serious because of the subject matters are very serious, and so they're very grounded for that matter. But the princesses are not serious, like they're, because they're princesses, and you can't kill and you can't fight, you can't do anything because you're a princess. You're smart. You have to do it a different way, right? It's more strategic. And so, like Mashika, she's technically she's from way back when, like in the 1500s or 14 and past, but my other princesses, I don't know. There's going to be one in space, one in water, and then one is going to be a witch, a princess of the witches, and so I haven't written any of those out because right now I'm writing Jalisco 2 out, or V2 as I call her. So, and then Santa V2 and Loquita V2 are other writers. So those are the ones that are going, but they're not at art stage yet. And so they will cross, and I do have another universe, that's the Latina universe, which I have not started yet, but I do know 2 of the heroes. And so Latina means male and female and non-binary, so it is a very inclusive group. And those are going to be more on it's a different thing. They're different outlooks. They're not grounded. They're very much more kind of like invincible, kind of in that sense. I don't think they're going to fly because I'm over people flying, but they're going to be much more on like the Deadpool type, the anti-hero type side. I have not written any of those out yet, but they're very fun in my head. There's the 2 that I have in my head that I already know what their powers are, so I'm not gonna tell you. But when I get there, because I won't start till next year, because I have my list of writing that I have to do. So that's the answer is yes, they will cross over, but I'm not there at the point where they're gonna cross over yet because I'm still establishing the universes.
I love the thinking, and I love the fact that along the way, like for me, I came in with A La Brava. That's my introduction. But I'm hearing more about the princesses, who I actually have almost no knowledge about. It's just not a part of it that I've looked into. So I'm learning more about that. And then it's almost like it makes me want to keep asking more questions, because it's almost like you're like, well, if you want to peek back over here, I've got this other universe I can tell you about, and there's some characters. I'm not going to tell you the powers yet, but you are, just giving enough teasers that anybody listening is like, are you serious? What else is there? And so I love that. I also love that. So I'm a writer, and I've been working on a novel and other projects. And I remember once when I was sharing the novel with my committee and like, hey, this is my thesis, this is what I'm working on. And the one teacher was like, so explain something. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, so it sounds like, can you go into your world and just sort of tell me what at any moment? And I was like, sure, let's like walk into this scene and I'll tell you what's happening around us. And as you were talking about how they are in your head, I started to wonder, like, whether it's a Sherlock Holmes kind of mind palace, Benedict Cumberbatch thing, or if, and everyone's got a different one. Everyone has this way of like entering. So I was curious about how often you step into that world. For me, it's usually when I'm doing something mundane, like I'm washing dishes and I'm like, so I think with this one, or if I have to do mow the lawn, something I don't enjoy doing, where I'm like, I know how to mechanically do this. So my brain starts to do that. Where I'll kid you not, it reminds me that as a kid, I would mow the lawn and I would remember funny things or stories I wanted to work on. And I would have this big cheesy grin on my face. And my parents would be like, what is wrong with that? My sister would tease me, like, you have the biggest grin when you're, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about something totally different at that moment. And I don't care that I'm mowing. So I was curious about when you go into your world, because I think any creator, any artist, writer who's listening is going to enjoy hearing your experience and how it's similar and both different to how so many of us go, yeah, there's this thing I see. There's this place I go. What's your
Um,
world like when you go to it?
so right now the Latina superheroes are on my back burner, so I don't think about them. If they come to me and I think of, because they're all going to be very different on something that we haven't seen, right? Obviously much more on the Latina and the Latino world, but it's not something that, it's not going to be Jubilee. It's not going to be Wolverine. Like they're not going to have like really weird claws, just dumb stuff. But they will be very fun because this is more my fun, my humorous one, right? Latina Princess is cute. Superheroes are very grounded and but serious. They all have their own different world and flavors. But when I need to start thinking of like a script to write, because I come from scripts, so I still write my scripts out first, and then I do the rough storyboards, and then the artist makes them into legit, storyboards and pages. I just put the person in my mind, whoever they are, and then generally when I'm driving, or laying down like right before going to bed, like when I'm like kind of not necessarily doing something mundane, but in that sense, when like it's just really just rotary kind of skills, like or just doing nothing, my mind will continue. My mind continues all the time. My mind's always playing no matter what. But when I'm driving, because you don't need much to do when driving, so my mind will go, which is great. So whenever I have to do longer drives, which is just like Long Beach drop off more comics, but like my mind will start figuring it out. And then I talk to myself in the car, of course, with the music on, but it'll start figuring it out. I'm like, okay, so like Jalisco V2 is the one I'm on, and I can't go until I figure out what she's going after, right? So what the arc is. So what, like elder abuse might be one of them because it hurts me. So I'm trying to think like same thing, all the five first, because these are the serious ones. So what hurts me? Femicide, immigration, that's ICE. So it's gun control within the school and teen suicide, trafficking, domestic violence. They go back dark. So it's like, what haven't I covered yet? And my two writers are also covering the ones that are doing V2s. They chose their topic as well. So once I figure out what the arc is, or what the problem is per se, the social justice issue, then I'm like, okay, cool. Like I already know there's going to be a curandera. I already know there's going to be a daughter of the curandera. Like I already have some beats because I wrote A La Brava out. And so Jalisco V2 happens before A La Brava, the team, when they meet as a team. So I know how she has to end up, which is fine. And I'm not going to tell you, but I know how she has to end up because of what happens to her in V2. And so I know how, kind of like the ending. I know that. I just have to know what the little social justice part is. And then, of course, the story to it. And so that's where I'm at, but I'm not there yet because I'm finishing up a pilot for Mass Republic. And I'm also pitching Warner Brothers right now for a La Brava series in writing. So, I tell you, my brain's all over. I have like a bunch of tabs open in my mind. And so it's like, I'm on this tab right now, and so like, that's fine because the writing one, I write fast and I'm ahead in comparison to my artist. Right, because they have 4.5 books are going right now. And so it's not, I'm definitely ahead, but I do need to finish eventually or start eventually Jalisco B2. And then go back to all the princesses, like 5 of them or 4 of them. I guess 4 of them now. And so that's where I am. But I mainly do it when I drive is my answer.
Gotcha. No, I also loved it when you were talking about Jalisco. I reminded that yes, I did love when I was reading Laquita the sheets and just a couple of these little moments where I was like, that's Jalisco. Just dropped right in there. Just lovely little touch, and how later we'll get to see them as a team. I also loved what you were describing about when these ideas come. I think it's always sort of fun for anybody who's listening to this because that's the whole point of why I try and talk with creators, writers, and artists. There's something that almost all of us connect with when it comes to that idea of someone says a word and everybody hearing it has a different idea behind it based on how they enter into that concept. So you say story, and just put it in front of a group of people, and writers, artists, those who work in film, those who work in a myriad of mediums from painting to everything else are going to picture something different. And they're also going to have a process of how they engage with that. Like, some people don't think stories are linear. They don't think they have a beginning and an end. You know, they think the idea is it's either connected to emotion, and that's how you traverse a story, or other ideas behind that. Sometimes color is a story. So I loved hearing your process, and I think anyone else listening, I know I did. As you were describing, I was like, yeah, okay, so I don't feel as bad about zoning out when I'm driving, and I'm not dangerous per se. I'm
Yeah.
simply allowing myself to enjoy thinking about something that's certainly more enjoyable than driving. Just happens to be that way. So
Yeah.
you're building this universe. You're pitching to Warner Brothers. Is there a is there a destination? Is there a horizon? Is there a place you're looking towards as you're working on this? Because what I love so much is that in each of your stories, there's an intention. Um, One of the things that caught me with Lokita was two things. One, in like the first page, maybe by the second, she's in the eyes of the world a woman in that moment, right? And it happens in a very public setting in a very awkward way. And
Yeah.
immediately it's like, I remember this great writing scene where someone was writing and they said, yeah, all of her friends are in the water and she can't go in. Something happened this morning and she can't, go swimming in the water with her friends. And I remember it took my teacher to point out what the importance was at the time. I'm like, oh wow, okay, I totally get what's going on here. So you start with that idea of it, but then you use that as a process that also moves through this story about facing fears, unlocking parts of herself that can address magic, spiritual creatures, what she can do about that. And then through that, so much of it is about this very heightened triggered moment, which is, not to get too, cutesy with the language here, but trigger in regards to a school shooting,
Yeah.
and how so much of that is coming about. I think I'm captivated by that. And then I wonder, okay, so as you're doing that in each one, you said you've written out A La Brava. You've
Mhm.
you've seen them coming together as a team. When you're looking at all of this, where are you guys headed? What do you see as being like the place that you're striving towards, or a destination that sounds like a great milestone, or something along those lines? Like, as you're building this up, do you see a direction where you're headed, or is it so much about, I'm just telling great stories in the moment, and what I'm building is something I can look back on later? And that's always an interesting thing for me is, are people looking ahead and this is where I'm going to, or are they working on it? And they're like, look, at some point I pause at a summit. I just sort of look back and go, okay. And then they just keep working on it. And I was curious what your vision was
No, I'm always reaching for the moon, no matter what. I mean, as long as you can see it, you can get there. And so I want to be the Latina like Marvel Studios. And that's like, why not? So I would like a feature film and the TV series and the dolls and the Halloween things. Like here's one of my little costumes that my friend made me because she knows I like dolls. And so like here's little fake blades, and it's just, and I have the Funko version. Same thing, my friend painted them for me. But it's just that, like, why not have all the ancillary, and why not have a little kid or lots of little kids and adults dressed like Jalisco or Santa or Luquita, or any of them. And so why not have that end goal? And that's it. It's just why not be Marvel Studios?
like. I love it. If there's going to be a horizon, if there's going to be an intention, if there's going to be a question to ask and answer, I think why not be Marvel Studios is a great one. So here's always the fun part for me. After about 45 minutes, coming up on around almost an hour, I realized that either I've had a list of questions or I had a starting point. I knew there was some points I wanted to address. And I started writing for my newspaper in my town at 17 and interviewing people. And I used to think I was getting pretty good at it. But at some point, I don't know when, and I can't think of a moment when I checked myself. But I think actually I probably just ran out of questions and I was like, so what do you think about something? But I
Yeah.
realized there's a value in the unasked question. There's an immense value in the thing that is not in my scope, that I'm not picking up just because of my own perspective. I'm coming into this conversation only aware of so much, and there's so much more that you might have that I'm not even thinking to ask about. So this is the part where I turn around and say, if there's a question that you would love for people to ask because you got the answer, or if there's a question that you're like, one of these days someone's going to ask me this and I'm going to have this answer just like primed up. Is there a question I haven't asked? Is there an answer you would love to share? Is there something you wish was asked that you could share more about? Because it's just as important to what we've been talking about as anything else I or anyone else might have asked. Does that make sense? Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, it's just your question is you should interview yourself and say it all aloud in your head. I don't know. I don't have any necessarily a question to ask myself. I'm very open, and you did a very good job, I think, in answering. Like I kind of went through them anyway, and I kind of just veer when I speak, regardless. But no, I don't think I have any questions for myself. But if you think of one, please let me know, and I will answer.
I will try and come up with more. The concern for me is there something in all of this that I didn't touch upon with a question that is just as important as anything else you've shared about A La Brava, these characters, the story you're creating, the team you're working with, and it's important. And if someone asked it, you would be like, yeah, hey, by the way, there's this. So I always like to offer that opportunity as an idea of like, is there anything left to say about Phoenix Comics, A La Brava, or any of the great titles we've been talking about today that you would like to add that you feel is in addition or a great thing to consider when people are checking this stuff out?
I want to say I'm very grateful for everyone's responses, regardless if they're Latina or female or not. Like, honestly, it's for everyone. I do try to write universally. Like, the themes are universal. Courage is universal, right? Never waste your pain, universal. They're very, like, Luca is just justice, right? So they're all universal themes. They just happen to be Latina. They happen to be female. They have to be from the socioeconomic level, and the location. They're all very different locations as well. So I am, as you know, I'm a firm believer of equality, no matter what I do. Like Lokita even has a trans and a non-binary in there. Why? Because I can do what is it called when they branch off and they make their own, right? With these two
Oh,
characters.
sure,
Because
great spinoff or something.
yeah, spinoff, thank you. And so but those are the things I think about, like, and it's important, like those two people, they wear their colors. One wears trans colors and one wears non-binary colors, and that's very important for the people that get it, for the people that need to see it, right? If someone doesn't get it, no big deal. It doesn't matter. It's still just someone wearing clothes, and like that's the kind of like little extra messages for the people that need to see it, to know that they're accepted and they're welcome and like they're not going to get beat up, right? Because you think of a trans person, especially a colored trans person, like think of feature and TV, they're getting beat up, or they're streetwalkers, like there's something how we perceive them. But here, this person knows parkour, right? Because why wouldn't they? And it's the same thing. So my whole thing is always why not, or why wouldn't they, kind of deal. And it's true. They're Loquito's friends. And they're gonna, eventually branch off and make their own parkour / MMA studio. And that's the fun thing. Like, these are little extra things in my mind that if I want to, I have it. But it's just about representation, right? Representation on and off the page. Same thing when I have a Latina artist. My princesses are actually Latinas and a non-binary now, because it's important, right? It's inclusivity, because I should include them. And that's the thing, like, and I always have that in mind, in hopes that other people can also do that, right? Because like, if I can do it, you can do it, and it's absolutely true. Like, why can't you do it? And that's always, like I said, that's my mom's mentality, because she just led. She never told me that, but like, you just lead by example, and then that's what you pick up.
See, that's the kind of question I didn't have in my quiver. That's the answers you were giving there are so important. I loved everything you were describing about, look, there's a clue here, and there's a way for anyone who's looking for it, anyone who recognizes it, to see it. It's not designed to be something that, hey, if you miss it, you miss the story, but it's a part of the story. It's an element, it's a detail. And because of that, it's an opportunity to just sort of pause and say, hey, reader, did you see that? Look, this was a great opportunity, and also, as you described, because of how it's being done, it's not a stereotypical version of how a character is perceived more often in other media. It's not something that's over the top or in any way saying, well, if this is, if this is something we're going to bring to your attention, is going to be brought in this very extravagant way. It's a subtle nod. It's a, if you see this, that's why it's there. It's there for you and for anyone else who's looking or sees it as well. And that's something I don't think I would have figured out how to phrase in a question, but I love the way you described it.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And I love the description of the universe. Know that I'm pretty sure, based on the stories you're telling, I'm going to want to have you back on. I'm going to want to continue our conversations and talk more about what's happening with A La Brava, Phoenix Comics, and some of those things you've been teasing about that you might have more to share at a later date. And I know I'm not the only one. I know there's a chance that people are out there going, so I want to talk to this person, and I would love to follow up with them, or in any way be a part of what you're working on, either as a writer, as an artist, as a support, like you were able to get from so many great gifts on top of that Kickstarter for the short film. So, is there a platform that you prefer people reach out and make a connection with you, where you are most often to be found, or something like that you would like to share at this time, so they can know, hey, this is, she just said, why not? Right? So why not, if you have something that you want to talk to Kayden about, reach out to her here. Is there a particular place you'd like to direct them to?
Yeah, Instagram, at Latina Superheroes. So Latina Superheroes, all one word. You can always IM me. I do check IMs. Yeah, you're more than welcome to write me, and please follow as well, if you don't mind.
Perfect. And I love that that's one of those last things that really stuck with me. The why not? Because there's also there's something that seems to, for me, go with that, which is, if you know what that means, why not? Then here's the other question: why aren't you? I mean, if someone's saying to you, why not? And you're nodding and saying, yeah, well, that's step one. Step two is to take that understanding, that support that someone's offering, like you just did, and go, okay, so do something, whatever it is, the thing that are looking to do. And I think that's a message that anybody listening is going to really find themselves connecting with. Because I know as soon as you said it, I was like, yep, I don't even know how I could have asked a question to bring that up. But the fact that she just said it, I can imagine any creator, because wherever point you are in your work, it helps to be reminded that someone who's doing all the great things you are is turning around and saying, I'm not saying you can't do this. I'm not saying that there's something that I did that you can't do. In fact, what I'm asking is, why not? And why aren't you? Kayden, thank you. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I couldn't have figured out how to end on a better note. And it's okay with you, I'm going to stop our recording so we can chat for a minute before we end this.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Cheers. Hey, my pleasure.
And that brings us to the end of that amazing chat with Kayden Phoenix. I loved hearing about the story of taking a short film, turning it into a comic, and then deciding you're going to have better chances if you have 5 comic book characters instead of 1, which means let's build a team, let's create a universe, let's show the connections like the great examples with Jalisco, and let's also look forward to other characters coming our way, as well as that great Spanish edition of Jalisco. There's a lot of great news in store, and I'm going to include all the ways for you to keep up with Kayden Phoenix in the liner notes. Thanks for always listening. Thanks for checking us out. And thanks for telling a friend. And if you don't, shh, I won't tell. See you next time.